This is the Rheem RTEX-24 24kW 240-volt electric tankless water heater. If you're out there searching for a water heater but you're low on space, or you don't want one of those giant awkward tanks that eat up your closet, you're going to appreciate what I say in this quick review. Before I got my hands on it, I honestly had some doubts about switching to a tankless heater, especially an electric one. But after going through the installation and living with it for a while, I have plenty of real experience and thoughts that might help anyone considering this for their own home or, like me, a smaller project space. So to start things off, let me give you a picture of what this water heater looks like and how it feels to use. The Rheem RTEX-24 is surprisingly small, definitely way smaller than the regular tank heaters I grew up seeing at my parents' place. The whole unit is about 17.5 inches wide and just a little taller than that. But what really stands out is the depth. It's only about 3.5 inches thick. That's practically flat compared to the clunky tanks you might be used to. The finish is this really clean gray, simple and modern. I wall-mounted mine in a closet that's a little over a foot deep, and it doesn't stick out awkwardly at all. In fact, it leaves me with way more storage for other things, which is a big win for anyone living small. When you see it on the wall, it's sleek. I don't think I've ever described a water heater as sleek before, but here we are. The controls are all up front. There's a round on-off dial and an LED digital display that tells you exactly what temperature your water is set to. No more guessing or fiddling around. Just set the temp and you're good to go. I honestly appreciate little things like this because I'm not a plumber or electrician by trade. I just want something straightforward and I can operate without needing a manual open every time. Now let's talk a bit about my experience getting this set up and running. I don't have natural gas at my place, so electric was really my only option. I started out a little nervous because the RTEX-24 draws a decent amount of electrical current. You need 3 separate 40-amp circuit breakers and a fair amount of 8-gauge wire. If you're not super comfortable working inside an electrical panel, or if you don't already have the space on your circuit breaker, I definitely recommend getting a pro to help. I like DIY, but on this, I brought in a friend who's a licensed electrician just to make sure everything is up to code, and I feel good about that choice. Once wired up though, the rest was smooth. The plumbing is simple: cold water in, hot water out. The connectors are 3/4 inch standard NPT, so I could use off-the-shelf valves and fittings. I actually installed some service valves so I can flush the heater with vinegar once a year and keep it clean, which is something I'd recommend if you want it to last. So let's get to what I like most about the Rheem RTEX-24. For me, it's all about space saving and having on-demand hot water. If you've ever run out of hot water because someone else took a long shower, especially if you have kids, you know how frustrating that is. With this unit, I get instant and continuous hot water whenever I need it. I don't have to wait for a tank to heat up, and I don't ever worry about it running out. Even if we're doing a couple showers back-to-back or running dishes and laundry. Rheem says it can push about 5.9 gallons of hot water per minute, which I've found totally matches up for my family's use. What sold me the most is how energy efficient this thing is. According to the spec sheet, it's got a 99.8% efficiency rating. That means almost all the electricity you put in actually gets used to heat the water. No more paying for standby losses, like when a tank just sits there, losing heat all night. When I started tracking my energy bills, I noticed a real difference. Plus, the self-modulating power control is pretty slick. Basically, it means the heater only uses as much power as necessary to deliver the water temperature you pick. If I'm just washing my hands, it barely sips power. If we're taking multiple showers, it cranks up as needed. Here's another point I like: durability. The inside components are made from stainless steel, which is not only tough, but also resists corrosion. My old tank heater rusted out after about 6 years, so this was another reason I wanted to leave tanks behind and try something new. It seems built to last, and I haven't had any leaks or weird problems so far. That's me, speaking as somebody who's lived with it daily. But nobody makes a perfect product. There are some points I don't love with this model, and it's only fair to talk about those too. The biggest challenge is definitely installation, especially with the electrical part. If your panel doesn't have enough space or you're not comfortable working with high voltage, it's really not a plug-and-play situation. Hiring a professional does add to the cost, so keep that in mind when you're budgeting. I also noticed in some other reviews, people mentioned it can sometimes struggle to keep up in really cold weather. Where I live, we don't see freezing groundwater temperatures, but if you're up north and your incoming water is icy, you might not get quite as hot a shower as you hoped, especially if you're running a couple taps at once. Speaking of cost, the initial price was a little higher than I would have spent on a cheap tank heater. Add in the professional installation if you need it, and it might sting for some buyers. But for me, the savings and performance have made it worth it. I do wish the company's customer support was a bit faster. I had a couple questions early on, and while I eventually got answers, I feel like they could be a bit more responsive, especially given the level of investment people make.